your levels are.
Check the rhyme, y'all. Check it out.
Check it out.
76. Now we're
See,
up to 85.
I knew as soon as you came on, we're talking about hat. Look at my funny hat.
Freedom 76. Name the band. Ween.
Ah, okay. Always good. Always welcome. All right, let's do this thing. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Bloom, you said it. We're at the halfway point of the fantasy football season. It is the waiver wire more important now than ever before. Or is it just all for nothing? Well, it's never for nothing because you can always play spoiler, but you got to keep up with everything, which means injured quarterbacks, which means Dr. Jene Bramel joins us now to talk about injured QBs here in week 10.
Hello, friends. Big news at quarterback this week is Russell Wilson looks like he's going to be back from his finger fracture in time to play against Green Bay this week. Was able to get full clearance from his surgeon, has been throwing for about a week or so without too much difficulty. Still going to have to prove that he's got the grip strength there, but I don't think they would have gone so far to post a note from a surgeon saying he was cleared to go if they weren't expecting him to play. So expect him back this week. Kyler Murray, news may not be as good. Dealing with a high ankle sprain, was not able to play last week. Did get out of his walking boot, but still has a ways to go before he can be cleared to play. Cardinals said last week that they wouldn't clear him until he was able to protect himself in the pocket. That may or may not be this week. May see if it could be week 11 or even beyond. The Cardinals have a bye coming up soon. I don't think Murray's absence is going to stretch through there, but he's questionable for this week. Aaron Rodgers will be off the COVID list by the end of the week. You would think that the Packers would clear him to play despite not practicing this week, but we'll see how that progresses, but you'd consider him probable to go. Tua Tagovailoa dealing with a fracture on the third finger of his throwing hand. Still dealing with grip strength issues, could not drive the ball down the field in practice and was ultimately declared out. Miami's going to watch and see how he progresses in practice, consider him questionable as well. Trevor Lawrence dealing with ankle sprain, was able to come back to last week's game. Expect him to be able to play this week. He's probable. Zach Wilson and Mike White competing to be the starting quarterback in New York. Wilson should be back to practice from a PCL sprain back in week 7, but it looks like Mike White might have the upper hand on the starting job this week. Had a nerve contusion, a bruise on his forearm, just wasn't able to grip the ball very well, but that healed up pretty quickly. Looks like he's going to be full practice this week, and we'll see how things progress. Drew Lock on the COVID list, unlikely to be able.
Drew Lock is just not good. How about that?
Right. Drew Lock, still Drew Lock. This is your week 10
Drew
quarterback
Lock.
report.
Right. Your week 10 quarterback report starts down there in New Orleans, dude. What the hell? What the hell? Let's talk about Taysom Hill. What the hell, bro?
Yeah, and I think that we could see a 2-quarterback system. We could see a legitimate 2-quarterback system here, but Hill looked good on his 2 attempts. Trevor Siemian looked good after that to bring the Saints back into the game as they woke up and played 1 out of 4 quarters. It was almost enough. But the main thing here is we know what Taysom Hill can do as a fantasy quarterback, and if he does get to take over this team, this offense, then he's going to be a startable player every single week. So again, this is that time cease. We talk about jock blocking, we talk about playing keep away, and I think even if you don't need Taysom Hill, then you don't want him to land on another roster. And see, as we saw with Aaron Rodgers last week, it's winter coming. You know, I got to get my ski caps out too. So you never know when you're going to need a quarterback. You never know when you're going to need a fantasy quarterback. So even if you don't need Taysom Hill right now, playing keep away, if you still have some dollars left to spend, if he's still out there, could be something that saves one of your weeks.
Right. It is a long, cold winter in Bloom. It's always good to wear unless it's like super hot. And well, you live in New Orleans, so there's probably too much humidity to wear these. But yeah, I find myself wearing this like 9 months out of the year.
That's a good one. The shield.
Yeah.
Repping this shield.
It's fine. It keeps my hair flat. So standing straight up. How can you tell when Cecil needs to go to the barber? He's wearing his ski hat all the time.
How can you tell when Bloom hasn't bathed for a few days? Well, it's a day that ends in DAY.
How about Justin Fields? He bathed your fantasy team with goodness.
Yeah.
15 to 30%. What a segue. Matt Ryan is 12 to 25% and 10 to 20% from Mike White. You heard Dr. Gene there as well. And I don't mind. It doesn't mean anything about Zach Wilson. Not right now. You know what I mean, Bloom? Like if they hold him out a little bit, or maybe, he's a little bit, he's not yet to start. Like, it's fine. It's fine. Kid wasn't ready. Mike White's nerve contusion. That sounds like a funny bone issue. Either way, let's talk about these 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and deodorant for the offense. Justin Fields throwing downfield, right? There you go. Yes. This is one brought to you by Axe Body Spray for Men. I wish. If you're out there and you're looking for a show to sponsor, we're available. So Justin Fields going into his bye. So we have a lot of Chicago Bears, and you have to weigh this out, right? Especially if you have limited. We're going to touch on this as we talk about more Bears as we go through the Waiver Wire show. On one hand, this late into the season, it doesn't feel great to pick up a player going into his bye because he can't help your team next week. He can't increase his value. But remember, Justin Fields is a running quarterback, or he can add a lot as a runner. Now you have him adding as a downfield passer. There could definitely be something there. And maybe we could look back and say Fields is actually a better pickup than Taysom Hill this week. But both are players that shouldn't be on the waiver wire for strategic purposes. Matt Ryan passing over top of the Saints to get the big win in the Superdome. And the other thing you can see here is, look, Atlanta doesn't really have a running game. Atlanta also has Dallas, New England, Jacksonville, Tampa. In the next 4 weeks, I count at least 2, maybe 3 good matchups against the pass for Atlanta. So Matt Ryan can absolutely help us out. And then there's Mike White, and again, maybe he's being underestimated. And it's elegant, Cease, the way these things can fit together, right? It's like running against the Chargers faces the worst part of their defense, and it keeps Justin Herbert on the sidelines. If you're Kansas City and you're stringing together these long drives, did you hear how shocked the announcers were? Wow, Kansas City with an 8-minute drive. Yeah. If you listen to Eric Stoner, you already knew, like, that's their A game to win, keeps their defense off the field. Zach Wilson needs some time. Right? So playing Mike White, who's playing well and revitalizing this offense, 2 birds, 1 quarterback decision. And for fantasy, we saw 2 straight weeks that this pass offense was prolific. We're going to talk more about this in the waiver wire wide receiver section.
Right.
So if Josh Johnson can do it, and I get it, it's garbage time, it's the Colts. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But still, the garbage time's going to keep coming. The garbage time's going to be there. Maybe we'll see against Buffalo. You have to play that cover 2 that just baffles the Bills, at least last week. So Mike White could be underestimated here too. See, it wouldn't be surprising if we fast forward to week 15, week 16, the fantasy playoffs, and Mike White and Taysom Hill and Justin Fields and Matt Ryan, these are all guys that we're saying, yeah, they're startable fantasy quarterbacks in 1 quarterback leagues, not just 2 quarterback superflex. That's the kind of year it has been.
Right, and in 2 quarterback superflex, you do have 1 guy, Jacoby Brissett, because of the Tua thing. Yeah. And I always love how the upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report available at footballguys.com. I love how this time of year, when you get to your like drop and then hold section,
right?
We got, of course, hold on, that's later in the show, but like there's like it's more robust. We only have like 5, 6 quarterbacks today, and Jacoby Brissett's the last one. We already kind of know. I guess it was a little bit better last time out. It's okay. See what you can do this week against Baltimore, right?
Yeah, we'll see if it's Tua or it's Brissett. This one may come down to the wire. So if it's Brissett, there's something there for 2 quarterback superflex leagues if you need him. Although I want to point out, I didn't get to point this out in the recap show, Cease. The Texans forced 5 turnovers and lost to Jacoby Brissett.
Enough said.
Yeah, I don't want to make things too depressing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whenever we need to pick me up, what do? We look to our friend, Dr. Jene Bramel, with about injured running backs this week. Dr. Jene, take it away.
Lots of notes at the running back spot. Ezekiel Elliott was in and out of last week's game with a knee contusion. He was back on the field despite Dallas being down quite a bit against Denver in the second half. Says he's been dealing with this issue in his knee for a while. Kind of a bruised situation when he gets hit on it the right way. He has some pain and soreness. So he could miss some practice this week, but he's probable to play. The Giants, Saquon Barkley and Devontae Booker, both dealing with injuries. They have a bye this week, so we're not looking for them to return, but I think there's a good chance that we'll see Barkley out of the Week 10 bye. He should be back in Week 11. Major injury this week was to Chase Edmonds, who suffered a high ankle sprain on the first play of the game. Multiple reports suggest that this is going to be a 3 to 4 week injury at minimum. Could be a little bit longer than that. Ian Rappaport suggested that Edmonds was going to go on injured reserve. We'll see if that actually comes to be the case this week or not, but definitely out this week and potentially beyond. Kind of looking at Week 14 as a possible return date for him right now, but we'll see how things progress. Jaguars will be hopeful to get James Robinson back this week. was not able to play through the pain of a pretty difficult heel contusion, was only able to have one limited practice last week. They were hopeful. Hopefully this week he's been able to recover enough where he'll be back on the field. A number of players we're watching with concussions: Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson in New England, Zach Moss in Buffalo. See whether or not those players are able to come back. Latavius Murray still not practicing in Baltimore, although we should see Tevin Coleman back practicing with the Jets. Also would expect to see Jamal Williams back from his hip injury this week after missing a little bit of time. We're also hoping to see Chris Carson back to practice. Pete Carroll told the Seattle reporters on Monday that Carson was going to be back on the practice field on Wednesday. He's going to have to prove that he's healthy enough and that his neck responds to whatever contact and increased conditioning he may take. I think not likely to see him in a major role this week, but he could be returned from the injured reserve list and possibly active this week. Still waiting to hear what's going on with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Andy Reid has been a little bit back and forth about whether or not he's going to have a chance to come back. He's been eligible since last week. Kind of still hearing week to week on him. It's a chance he may return to practice, but I'd still consider him doubtful to play unless we get a lot of good news from Andy Reid and Edwards-Helaire himself moving in through as the week goes on. Still waiting for Kareem Hunt. I think that's going to be multiple weeks, even though he's eligible to return this week.
It is time for your top 2 waiver wire running backs, Bloom. And there's 2 of them, one that I'm excited about and one that I can't really trust. But it's Kenyon Drake and it's Ramondre Stevenson. So let's talk about this situation, because Drake is the guy that could always have done this, but Gruden didn't want to play him. Now he's playing and it's good. And then Ramondre Stevenson is the guy we know can play, but then gets in the doghouse. Dr. Gene mentioned the concussion. There's some complications here, but both of them at the top of your list.
Yeah, it's tough. These are a lot of decisions this week. There are a lot of decisions that are requiring calculus that have variables that we have to just guess at, right? Maybe we're not guessing at Kenyon Drake's usage. 8 targets, 100 total yards last week. I do think that this is going to be Kenyon Drake's role going forward. Maybe not 6 catches for 70 yards, but certainly PPR leagues, he can help you out. Kansas City up this week. You got to like that. Josh Jacobs, also, there's still injury upside there. So if Drake is still out there, you want to get him. And then Stevenson, and we've been doing the inactive tango. You know, he's active, he's not active, he's active, he's not active. Well, look, he looks good, right? He looks like what this offense needs. And we have to think about this Patriots offense a little differently than other offenses, because they're going to be hyper conservative, which means a lot is going to run through the backfield. Stevenson making some plays in the passing game, making some plays. Remember, they don't have a James White, right? They don't have somebody who can be that satellite back. And Brandon Bolden did it for like a game. So Stevenson can get part of that role. He can split the backfield with Damian Harris. Now, again, concussion, but Damian Harris has a concussion. So maybe Stevenson gets cleared before Harris. Maybe Harris gets cleared before Stevenson. Maybe with concussions, there's a big unknown here. We're going to talk about some other Patriots backs before we're done. This is going to be a long waiver wire running back segment, because that was the nature of the carnage of week 9. But I know this: Stevenson has looked good on his touches. The Patriots offense and just their blueprint for winning is built around a conservative offensive playbook that's going to be a lot of Ramondre Stevenson. And, Damian Harris isn't exactly known for his durability either. So there's that Harris injury upside. You take all that, you mix it up in a cocktail cease. You want to have Stevenson on your roster to see what happens.
Yeah, and every time you say Carnage, me as a comic book guy, I should think of Carnage, the character, and Cletus Cassidy and all that. And it's funny that Woody Harrelson, 6 Degrees of Separation here, but I always think of Natural Born Killers when Robert Downey Jr. is like the jerk reporter, and then he's like the blood and carnage when they're going through the prison. So yeah, every time you say that word
now, right? Natural Born Killers seems tame.
It's interesting. It's interesting. That's other show, right? Show. So anyway,
Film and Social Crit. Join us.
We'll get that going sometime. Let's get through these running backs, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is a cluster, like you said. And here's Devontae Freeman, 15 to 30%. Nyheim Hines, 15 to 30%. Mark Ingram, 15 to 30%. Devin Singletary, have I told you, 15 to 30%. And hell, let's just throw in Jordan Howard there as well. Maybe he should be 15 to 30%, although I still don't trust Jordan Howard, right? I got an argument last week with Nick Ferguson because he was like, "Nigga, you get Jordan Howard." And I'm like, no, just no. So I was a no guy on Jordan Howard. He proved me wrong. So what about this week? Does that continue? And again, healthy cluster of backs, Bloom.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of churn here at the running back position. And Alex Collins also 15 to 30%. So we can step through these and see what these guys present for us, right? Alex Collins should be healthier coming out of the bye. Chris Carson's there. Chris Carson, we have to take a I'll believe it when I see it approach as far as him being back on the field. So Collins, maybe he's the sleeper here that should be more. I mean, maybe he could be worthless starting this week. Devontae Freeman, looking good. And remember, Nick Boyle didn't get activated last week, should be activated this week, should help the running game. He looks like he's the lead back for now. Now, Latavius Murray could be back soon, too, to complicate this. But for now, with the Thursday game coming up, we're not going to see Murray. Freeman looks like the most valuable Ravens running back. And see, this is something with the waiver wire that's really difficult to project. And maybe we don't give enough to the other side of it, right? Because we're projecting players to come back. We're projecting these situations to get more complicated. We're projecting players who are playing well right now to eventually start to lose value. But that doesn't always happen. So maybe this is where Freeman has that next chapter of his career, a la Justin Forsett, and not take over like Justin Forsett did in Baltimore, but at least have sustainable fantasy value. Nyheim Hines, see, talk about Groundhog Day. How many times are we going to see Hines used more in a game and say he's a good player? He should have a role. Use his speed. Use his patch catching ability. Use his ability to stretch the offense horizontally. When Marlon Mack is down, Hines gets more work. Now, this is another one of those things where Hines got more work as a single one-off game plan thing against the Jets, or maybe Hines changed the script anyway because he showed what he can do, reminded the Colts that he is a weapon that they can use, an element in this offense. We'll see against Jacksonville this week. We know that Hines also has a pretty high weekly upside for a role player. Mark Ingram, I feel like Ingram, not a sleeping giant, I don't know, a sleeping average-sized adult male. But he can wake up because, because he's not a giant at this point in his career, right? But you saw in this game, the split was pretty even between Ingram and Kamara. I mean, they are kind of returning back to the old Ingram-Kamara backfield, and Ingram doesn't look bad. He doesn't look washed up.
They kind of need to.
Yeah, they do. And if Taysom Hill is the quarterback, what did we see last year? When Taysom Hill got put in a quarterback, I think Latavius Murray had a big game to start things off. The downhill runner fits well with Taysom Hill on those read option calls. That's Mark Ingram. Ingram also caught 5 passes last week. Here's the kicker on Ingram. I don't mean to be selling Ingram more than the other guys in this tier of the waiver wire pickup, but we haven't seen what he can do in a positive game script yet. He hasn't been in a game script yet. Now, is that going to be this week against Tennessee? I don't know, but there's definitely something there with Mark Ingram, and there could be something there this week with Devin Singletary, with Zach Moss and the concussion. Zach Moss also, again, the pattern. He can't stay healthy. It's always something. The other thing is, so you remember Devin Singletary's long touchdown run, like week 2 this year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was an under center run. Mm-hmm. What are the Bills going to do if defenses keep challenging them to be patient, to be disciplined, to pass short, high percentage passes, run the ball with Josh Allen under center? How about that?
Yeah.
Maybe there's, again, sometimes fantasy football can be really maddening because we see things and we make moves. It's the assumption of rational coaching. And what's interesting now, is we're seeing in the course of a season, defenses adjusting faster and maybe forcing teams to be rational with their offensive game plans, but that still doesn't always happen. Anyway, a rational game plan to me would include a lot more Devin Singletary to counteract what defenses are probably going to do against the Bills going forward. Now we get to Jordan Howard. So you tease this apart. First of all, the Eagles have become a run-heavy team. Well, it kind of makes sense because Jalen Hurts is not a drop-back passer. Jalen Hurts is not a pocket passer.
He's not a passer.
Yeah. And teams are going to play zone defense. What's the one thing you don't want to do against Jalen Hurts, right? Play man-on-man coverage and have everybody run and clear out, and then Jalen Hurts can scramble. So you're going to play zone coverage. You're going to make things tougher on the passing game, but you're going to make things easier for the running game. And they have a good offensive line for a downhill smash mouth running game, and that's Jordan Howard's game. Now, this week against Denver, you can comment on the Denver run defense, but you look ahead, and maybe I'm becoming more of a Jordan Howard believer than I thought. They have New Orleans in week 11. All right, New Orleans run defense. But then you got the Giants, the Jets, Washington, the Giants, and Washington. I mean, Washington's another one of those teams that you just run on them. Just keep running on them. I mean, I'm sorry, Washington's one of the teams you're going to abandon the run to keep passing on them. But the Giants are a team that we saw give up a lot on the ground last week to the Raiders. So, Jordan Howard could be one of those guys that, depending on the matchup, assuming that the Eagles are going to stick with this, he could have some lasting value. So maybe Nick Ferguson was onto something.
Maybe. You just never know. You certainly never know. The running back position, you're on to something. You've got Dante Foreman, Jeremy McNichols, or Adrian Peterson.
Right, all three of them.
Yeah, let's just talk about that. Because that backfield is very fascinating. All these three backs are very talented in different ways.
Right. So with Adrian Peterson, what you had is he scored the touchdown. And he could be revving up a little bit more, meshing more with this running game. With Jeremy McNichol, you have the guy who's clearly still the passing down back and getting some carries. And maybe this week against New Orleans and their tough run defense, we're going to see some rational coaching from Todd Downing. You take the bull by the horns. More passing would equal more Jeremy McNichol. So this week in particular, it could be a Jeremy McNichol's week. Adrian Peterson is probably, especially in a 0.5 PPR or non-PPR league, a little bit better play if he's going to continue to get the touchdown opportunities. And then you have Dante Foreman. And Dante Foreman is the guy with the juice out of the three, right? You watch the three of them. He's got the juice. He also has no lateral agility whatsoever. I felt bad for him on that carry, right? He gets into the open field. All he has to do is make a move. It's like he hit all the buttons on the joystick at the same time, and he glitched. Because it's not his game. Dante Foreman's game is not lateral agility, okay? He tried to make a move in the open field, and he just fell down. But that's okay, because he's got that juice. And Tennessee, this week against New Orleans, but we look ahead at Tennessee's schedule, and you've got Houston, New England, Jacksonville. Pittsburgh's run defense continues to show some cracks. So there's some games there if Dante Foreman gets going. So he might have the highest theoretical ceiling out of the three of them, although he also might not be useful at all at any point this year. So we're just throwing some darts against these because things also change so quickly. Someone can get hurt in this backfield. This backfield can start to narrow. And we know that Tennessee as a team is going to continue to be resilient and continue to find a way to scratch out production even whenever they're overmatched. It was a pretty stirring victory by them on Sunday, just showing, just as a quick aside, kind of a Thursday night conversation here. The Titans already know how to win those games now, right?
Yes.
The Ravens are you have to know how to win a game like that.
Those are playoff games.
Those are playoff games, exactly.
Yeah, and Mike Vrabel, great job. You're the only ex-Patriots coach that people listen to. So Brian Flores is like, can I get some of that help down here? Anyway, Brandon Bolden, Le'Veon Bell, Eno Benjamin, who's on our cover this week, Carlos Hyde, and JJ Taylor round out your group of running backs in week 10.
Yeah, and see, we got some breaking news thanks to the chat room. Actually, let's go back and say that back in that 20 to 40 or at least 15 to 30% tiers, Dearness Johnson, because as we record, Dearness Johnson has a chance to start this week against New England as Nick Chubb and Demetric Felton on the COOF list. Now, they are both vaccinated, so it's possible they could play, but we haven't had many of those instances yet this year. I don't even know if I can think of one.
We're going to get more of those instances.
Where a player is added to the list during the week, vaccinated, and plays that weekend.
Yeah. So you're gonna have these type of shaky moments. We're in cold and flu season, so it just would make sense. And everyone's running around like nothing's wrong. So this is what's going to happen. So be ready for that.
Yeah. And just as a quick aside, because if you can hear my voice, we love you. You're our people. Just take care of yourself out there, everybody. Really. It's just and by taking care of yourself, you take care of other people too. And I don't care, whatever your personal choices are. I hope you're making personal choices to help yourself and help the people around you, people in your workplace, people in your family, because winter is coming. So Dearness Johnson back on the chart with the bullet as we have Nick Chubb and Demetric Felton on the COOF list now.
And Dearness Johnson, you could go to with confidence, especially if you just need him for a week. Bloom,
right.
It depends on where you're at. Maybe you haven't spent any of your waiver bucks. Hell, throw 50% of Dearness Johnson.
Sure. Well, because And the other thing is, again, we assume these things will, Kareem Hunt's going to be back. Well, maybe Kareem Hunt's not going to be back. Maybe Kareem Hunt's not going to be back until week 15.
Right.
Nick Chubb can still get hurt, So Dearness Johnson, never would we put him on a Alexander, Madison, Tony Pollard, A.J. Dillon kind of list, Cease. But that's where he's at right now. Yeah. And now it's like, what would we be saying about Tony Pollard or Dillon or Madison if the starter ahead of them was just put on the COOF list? Anyway, the list. Anyway, going down our list, the never-ending running back list. Brandon Bolden, and again with Stevenson and Harris with the concussions, it could be a Brandon Bolden week. And you have 1% of J.J. Taylor, but Taylor wasn't even active last week. And maybe we'll see if the Patriots add a running back to their practice squad and complicate these things. Le'Veon Bell, 11 touches, a touchdown. Our man, Ian's cat, a.k.a. Minion Hunter, has been reminding me about Bell all year, and maybe it's coming. Maybe it's coming, and again, this running game is going to get better. So he's second in line right now. No Tyson Williams to be mentioned. Benjamin, how good did you feel for Eno when he got that 21-yard touchdown?
I love it, man. I remember talking to Herman Edwards about him when he came out of Arizona State. He's like, you go watch out for this guy. The ball is the game. The ball is the game.
The ball is the game. And he finally, after being a healthy scratch at times when we expected him to be active, finally he's doing something. And hey, James Conner, I love James Conner. Not known for being able to stay on the field. So we could be talking about, Benjamin really quickly. We're waiting to hear if Chase Edmonds is going to go on injured reserve. But either way, Edmonds is out for weeks, not a week.
Yes.
We'll
and
see
doesn't it make more sense to use Benjamin because of his skill set, because Connor needs to stay fresh?
Yes.
It just makes sense. And hopefully Cliff Kingsbury knows what to do.
Yeah, plug right into those Chase Edmond touches because he can be a receiver out of the backfield and give you a little change of pace from Connor. And then we have Carlos Hyde, who may or may not start this week against the Colts in a game where you got 20 plus touches. Still wasn't really a great fantasy play, but hey, that 6, 7, 8 points can still be the difference. In a week like week 9, and week like weird week 9, that could be the difference. And who knows, maybe this is just going to be the weird second half of the season, and this running back list is going to stay like this every week.
Wild week 10, and I love how every day Vic Fangio may not be a good head coach, and he didn't give us as many drops as Vance Joseph, but every day
he gave us every day.
He gave us every day. Let's Dr. Jene Bramel gives it to us every day because the great information you get from him. Now talking about injured wide receivers.
Wide receivers are getting a little bit more healthy. We're waiting on the return of DeAndre Hopkins and Antonio Brown. Both of those folks are going to be questionable moving forward. Hopkins missed a game last week after aggravating hamstring strain Thursday the week before. Hopkins tries to play through as many injuries as he can, but we're dealing with an injury now that's definitely on the week-to-week side of things. See whether or not he's able to recover. A.J. Green still dealing with being positive for COVID last week. He has a good chance to return as long as he doesn't have ongoing symptoms. Mentioned Antonio Brown. Bruce Arians said he was still in a walking boot early this week. That would put him doubtful at best, and this could be a situation that stretches on a little bit. So look for him in week 11 at the earliest. The Jets are expecting Corey Davis back to practice. Good sign he'll be able to play this week. Sterling Shepard is the lone remaining Giants wide receiver of concern. Dante Pettis already on injured reserve. Sterling Shepard dealing with a quad strain. The Giants have a bye. Hopefully he'll be able to play coming out of the bye. De'Ami Brown in Washington expected to be able to practice. Curtis Samuel's absence at this point is indefinite. He cannot go back on injured reserve without being declared out for the season. You can't go on injured reserve twice. So we know there's an aggravated groin strain there. It's been week 5 since we've seen him on the field. There's no timetable for his return yet, and this could easily be continued a week-to-week situation, so doubtful at best. T.Y. Hilton still in concussion protocol. Sammy Watkins dealing with a hamstring strain, had a chance to play this week, and the Ravens ended up declaring him out. So unless Watkins is back on the practice field on Wednesday, you have to be concerned that there might have been some sort of situation where this could again be a week-to-week injury going forward. Devontae Parker was moved to injured reserve. Michael Gallup is expected to come off injured reserve, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen with Will Fuller, but it doesn't look like he's ready to return this week either. Calvin Ridley, hopefully doing better from a behavioral health standpoint. He was put on the non-football injury list, not eligible to return.
There you go. Dr. Jene Bramel to the wide receiver waiver wire list, Bloom, and it is less robust than running backs.
Yeah, well.
But the big one, Elijah Moore. I just want to talk about him. Yeah. We'll get to the other guys, but Elijah Moore. Wow. Just wow. You knew he could do it. We've been waiting for him to do it, and now he's done it. So let's do it some more.
Yeah. This is definitely his moment, right? This is a time whenever he can be the garbage time superstar, right? We see how quick he is. We see how he is able to be a dynamic player against defenses that are just closing it out. And also we see this revitalized pass offense. So all of these things are converging at Elijah Moore. We just want Mike White to stay the starter, right? I mean, that's it. And see, this is another example of why fantasy football, and we talked about this, but and I'm not saying I'm not guilty of this at times, or maybe I try to do like the humble victory lap or something like that, where you try not to really say I'm taking a victory lap, but you still point out something that confirms something that you were advising people to do, because it changes so quickly in the NFL. And if you were fading Elijah Moore for the first 7 weeks of the season, you looked really smart, right? Now Elijah Moore could be one of the most important fantasy football wide receivers in the second half of the season. So we continue to see this. I've said this on the show many times. We are often right and wrong about players in the same season. We'll say, well, I don't know about him because of these surrounding factors. And sure enough, the surrounding factors hold the player down. But then you can say, well, he's so good that he can transcend that, or maybe he can even change or transform his surrounding factors because he's so good. And that can also be true in the same season. We're watching it with the Bears pass offense. We're watching it with the Eagles running game. These teams do eventually become more rational. Not all of them, and that changes the considerations. And wow, if they change for Elijah Moore, and wow, is he fun to watch.
Pressure, right? Pressure creates diamonds. So pressure in the NFL creates coaches going, maybe I should just do what I should have always been doing. And that's the thing. And it's all windows, man. Fantasy football is not love. It's not forever. It's about capturing that window. So yeah, get your windows captured, get your windows done right. We need like a window company for this show.
Anderson Windows. Yeah.
There you go. Get the double pane on your windows. Brandon Ayuk will double pane. He's a pain in your butt when you're just deciding whether or not to start him. But now the pain seems to be subsiding, Bloom. And Odell Beckham Jr., as we record this Tuesday morning, we don't know yet, but somewhere, and that somewhere could be New Orleans, it could be Kansas City. Although every time I say New Orleans, Bloom, you seem to poo-poo that. So is there local buzz? Is there local sports radio buzz? Or no. What's going on there?
I mean, for fantasy, I poo-poo it because, well, it's Taysom Hill or Trevor Siemian. But certainly this is back to, his region, LSU, and certainly it would be something that would be maybe comforting for him. And if he wants to go to a contender, we also talked about the 49ers and the Seahawks, which aren't exactly contenders right now. You mentioned the Chiefs. Right. We'll see. Okay, we'll see. But as we step through, we see Brandon Ayuk, the second week in a row with starter snaps, starter routes, starter targets, and this time starter fantasy numbers, even though he had a terrible fumble and the team stuck with him. So as long as Jimmy Garoppolo remains the quarterback, and that's something to watch, maybe I should have had Trey Lance in the quarterbacks. Who knows? Although this could be a similar situation to Zach Wilson, where Kyle Shanahan, who, based on what we're hearing, sees there is no hot seat for Kyle Shanahan, right? I mean,
oh no, God,
the seat, no. It's going to remain as cool as a toilet seat in the winter. And it's just, this is going to be Kyle Shanahan, his team, so he can take his time with Trey Lance. That would certainly help Ayuk. Then we get to Odell Beckham. And with Beckham, I think it's just, you could see earlier this year, including our mutual friend of the show, former football guy, Matt Harmon of Reception Perception, saying, hey, look, Odell's moving like old Odell. He's separating like old Odell. But I think that we can deduce that indeed, as many people indicated, that the chemistry was just never there with him and Baker Mayfield, and maybe to the point that it skewed Mayfield's game when Beckham was out there and made him play worse. It just made him tighten up. And now everything is relaxed. So who knows what we could see from Beckham? And, it's a gamble. It's a gamble that you might say is a foolish gamble, but it could potentially be a fun gamble depending on where he ends up. So it's still a big unknown. He still could be claimed $7.25 million or something like that. there's lots of variables here. One thing I know is that I'm going to go down with the ship with a player like Odell Beckham. The same way I'm going down with the ship even with 36-year-old Adrian Peterson. There's certain talents. Kadarius Toney's another good example where you see it and you've seen it before. It's hard to believe it is gone.
Well, if you're throwing downfield and you are the Bears, then Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson become relevant. And again, windows here. And let's just wrap up wide receivers with Rashad Bateman and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Let's continue this because talent, speed, hands, route running ability, we got all that here.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff here. Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney going into the bye. So again, if they were dropped, you're picking them up and they're not going to help your team this week. I think Robinson, you're making, it's more of putting a chip on this talent, and it's going to eventually come around and the plays are going to be there. But Mooney, if you had to break a tie and they're both out there, I would say Mooney would win because of the deep passing game. Now, last night it was Marquise Goodwin with the bomb, but that just as easily can be Mooney. And we're just not going to talk about that game, right, Cease? I mean, I'm wearing my Heinz Ward jersey, so why am I doing that?
Yeah.
It's all right. Seattle fans from 2006, Bears fans, have a support group. And then we have Rashad Bateman.
Wow, that's like Sigmund's version, because my great comeback is you'll be all right. Yeah. Have a support group is like, that's your spin on it.
Yeah, well, help each other out. You're not alone, okay? I mean, hey, the Steelers are playing the Lions next week, and we have a support group for whenever the ref doesn't hear your call on a toss when you say, tails, heads.
The Lions.
Tails, heads. Heads, tails.
Hashtag tails. Watch the Lions win. That's how the football gods get back. Watch them win. True. And I'd be happy with it. I'd be like, yep, you deserve it, Pittsburgh.
I would toast that. I'll toast Rashad Bateman. Now, Rashad Bateman is the third target out of three, probably behind Brown and Andrews. But Lamar Jackson's so hot, and Bateman's getting better and better. And it really is a testament, by the way, to Bateman and his future in the NFL that he's making these plays, doing things for his team, even though he missed a lot of the beginning of the season. So, yeah, he's got a great future. We'll see about his near-term future for fantasy football. And then there's Donovan Peoples-Jones. And just think of Peoples-Jones as your roll-the-dice wide receiver 3 flex. Because those deep shot play-action passes in this Browns offense, which are not working with Odell Beckham, are working with Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I think that you have that. It's kind of a chip on, will the Browns offense work? It's going to be really interesting to see that against New England this week. And see, just as another point that we've made about the Titans and about the Ravens. And I don't know how wide of a net you cast for teams in the AFC that can get to the Super Bowl or get to the playoffs at least. But the Browns also know how to win games where they have to keep coming back from emotional gut punches, where they have to deal with changing circumstances, both who's available to them and so on. So this Browns-Patriots game is a really interesting game this weekend. And if the Browns can overcome and get to the playoffs and continue on the trajectory of rebuilding this once proud franchise, Donovan Peoples-Jones will probably be a big part of it.
Yeah, just watch the COOF list because it looks like the Browns getting hit. So watch for that. Watch for injured tight ends, right? Is that a good one? Is that a good transition? Always a good transition because we get to hear from the great Dr. Jene Bramel.
Hopefully we'll see the tight ends back to pretty much full health this week. Rob Gronkowski is being described as hopeful after missing much of Week 8 with back spasms after dealing with the rib injury and the lung contusion prior to that. So some good news from Tampa Bay. Bruce Arians sort of expects him to be able to play this week, but back spasms can be tricky, especially for a player that's had back surgery in the past like Gronkowski. So got him listed probable, but we're going to have to watch practice participation pretty carefully. Dawson Knox was said to have had a chance to return last week from a right hand fracture, and that did not. So hopefully that proves closer to return this week, and we'll see how he does. Logan Thomas also expected to return from a right hamstring strain to be able to play this week. I'm going to watch what happens in Denver, where Noah Fant should come off the COVID list, and Albert O dealing with a knee injury that knocked him out of most of last week's game. We'll see whether or not that's something he's able to recover from in time to play this week. Eric Ebron missed Monday night's game with a hamstring injury. Jonnu Smith in and out of Sunday's game with a shoulder injury that he's been dealing with for close to a month now. See whether those players are able to return to play. Blake Jarwin, hip injury back in Week 8, was put on injured reserve, not expected to be back. The Ravens, because they had to, activated Nick Boyle from injured reserve, could get him back on the field for good this week as a blocker to help out with the run game a little bit. Thanks, guys.
There's Dr. Jene Bramel. Thank you, Dr. Jene.
Yeah.
Did you see the picture of Heath Miller talking to Pat Freiermuth?
Yeah.
That was cool. That was cool, man. Yeah. Freiermuth at the top of the list. We'll get him. Let's get all the tight ends out of the way. I mean, roughly around the same.
Yeah.
I will say this, Bloom. I looked over every week. I do a fantasy waiver watch video for Hooters, and I was like, okay, who am I going to pick this week? I'm thinking about going with Dan Arnold, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about who you wouldn't normally expect, but Arnold there, and what's it been, like 60 yards in 4 games out of 5, 60 or more yards. So definitely that security blanket for that young quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be okay. Tyler Conklin in Minnesota there as well. And then Cole Kmet as we stick in that NFC North. So a group of tight ends, different values with Freiermuth at the top.
And I didn't include Gronk or Knox, although I've gotten some questions. If it was Gronk or Muth, I'd go Gronk. We're getting down just to syllables, guttural.
Right.
Gronk, Muth, and Knox. Gronk, Muth, Knox. That would be my order for these three. We'll see about Knox getting back, but with Freiermuth, the thing that you love seeing, Cease, is Roethlisberger trusts him. And look, Roethlisberger is in that corpse of Ben Roethlisberger phase, like Peyton Manning was in his Super Bowl year, second Super Bowl year, where you're getting by on savvy. Old man game. Old man game at quarterback means you know what because you can't exactly zip the ball in there. It's not like the defenders aren't going to have a chance to make a play on the ball, but you trust your guy to make a better play on the ball. And that's Freiermuth in the red zone. You mentioned Dan Arnold, and he led the team in targets last week. Dan Arnold, the key to the Jaguars offense, but it's also against Indy. Indy gave up a good game to Ryan Griffin last week. So, yeah, I think that if you're looking for just someone for this week and Muth isn't out there, I think, by the way, our friends at the Fantasy Footballers have something to cease. The Muth is Luth. So... That's pretty good.
Okay, yeah.
It's pretty good. And Kyler Conklin, I don't know if we can do something with Conklin. Conklin is Ronklin. Just with Minnesota, I mean, he's going to be that target that you say, okay, Jefferson's not going to beat us. We're going to give extra attention to Thielen in the red zone, or at least we're going to focus on that in our game plan. If Conklin beats us, Conklin beats us. And it is the Chargers. I think it's going to be a Dalvin Cook week. It could be a continued week for Tyler Conklin. I think back-to-back 5-catch games. Kmet is last because even though he might have more value than Conklin or Arnold in week 11 on, but again, he's on bye, so you can't use Kmet as a screener this week. When you think Cole Kmet, what is it about the tight ends? He's Muth, Knox, Gronk, Kmet. Goodbye a vowel. So, you know.
Okubagbanam.
Okubagbanam. Yes. So you don't think upside with Kmet. Is he worth holding? Plugging up a roster spot that could have someone that could increase in value, even a backup running back, Samaje Perine or something. Well, Cincinnati's on bye this week. See, I'm not even right about that. A backup running back that can increase in value this week with an injury to a starter. I'm not sure. But that rounds out, again, all the Bears passing game pieces now becoming more interesting as they're looking like an NFL offense finally.
And finally, Savinsky, one of our favorites in the chat room, and all of you are favorites. You know what I haven't done yet, Bloom, is, well, this is for everybody, right? The Keanu kiss. But Savinsky says, can we just get the Parm season already? And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. What is it? Donald Parm, you score so good. That's from one of many at the Peyton Manning catalog. So yeah, it's just a question of Jared Cook going by the wayside, which isn't probably happening. And then Steven Anderson's getting involved kind of as an H-back. So I think it's just the problem is that there is value in the tight end position with the Chargers. It's just split 3 ways. So that's what makes that a little more difficult, but it could be coming. And I think certainly for dynasty leagues, Aram, now we're getting to the vowels. Moreau, there's your vowel name. And then Moreau went back to the background of the Raiders offense, but these two guys are coming soon, maybe not this year, depending on opportunity. But the churn, again, at the tight end position, the churn in fantasy football, Cease. I mean, this has been a year, and the waiver wire shows are pause. In some ways, we're stepping back, we're looking forward to just show how illusory the idea of the NFL settling at any point in the season is now.
Right.
So compared to the mechanical bull, And I know I shouldn't really, if there's any rodeo or rodeo-esque metaphors, I should be leaving those to you. But the mechanical bull had a setting that we didn't know it had. And, just make sure you drink a beer before you get back on.
I beat it.
Yeah?
Yeah, when I was 11, the guy tried to buck me off.
Well, because you were lithe and limber when you were 11, weren't we all?
Oh, it's because I was a bull rider.
Well, yeah.
At that time, a steer rider, because I was 11. But I still remember it was in Castle Rock. Arm almost came out of my socket. But the guy was like, and my dad let him. Because the guy was like, Dad was standing next to the operator, and he's like, more, give him more. And then he's like, he turned it up to the 11 or whatever to the adult setting. And then I stayed on. I was like, You're not going to buck me off. So I had a little pin on my cowboy hat that said, I rode the bull. Nice. And it was an electric bull. And I remember when T. Woolman, who you won't know unless you're a rodeo fan, was world champion team roper. It was windy at Castle Rock, and I had a felt hat. He had a straw hat. He didn't want his hat to come off, code, right? So he rode up to me, and I didn't know who he was, but he was like, "Hey, what size is your head?" And I have a huge melon, and so I was like, 7 5/8, and I was 11. My head was 7 5/8, and he's like, "Hey, can I borrow your hat just for this run?" And I thought it was kind of weird, but I was like, "Sure," but I had to make sure to take my I rode the bull pin out because I didn't want him to lose it. So then he went out there, he ran, came back, gave me my hat, and I gave him his hat back. And then Dad came up to me, and he's like, "Did you know who that was?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "That was T. Woolman," because I was just sitting on the fence behind the chutes. And so anyway, that's my electric bull hat. I got regular bull stories.
He gave you the magic, like the spirit of the bull in that hat exchange, and you said, "I'm not using it for rodeo. I'm using it for fantasy football."
All right. I'm using it to give you the Keanu blessing, right? Out there, like Olafub says, because we get to the next part, and it's tough. Fantasy football, It is emotion. It is everything. It is what you need it to be, what you want it to be, and sometimes that means making tough decisions, and that's why we are here for you. So we get to our audience participation point of the show where you need to join in with us, no matter what you're doing, driving to work, taking the kids to school, walking the dog, whatever you want to say. What's Rocky's trainer? Mickey. What? Chase a chicken. Maybe I'll chase chickens on the farm. I don't know. You know, wherever you're at, no matter what you're doing, we all can come together. Bloom, don't we need moments where we all can come together? Doesn't that sound nice? Yeah. Like, hey, okay, stop. Everyone just come together. So we need to come together right now, and you join in with me as you say, "Cue the Chuck D! Bloom, Weekland, shut 'em down."
Shut them down. And see, by the way, we need more rodeo story segments from you, because I think that, I don't know if we did something like a chart of rodeo mentions from you over the 15 years we've been doing this. I think it's been trending down, and there might be people out there, as I'm seeing in the chat room, that don't know that, that there's an alternate universe where you're a rodeo star, and you already were a rodeo star, really. But again, the mechanical bull, it translates, but sometimes you got to let go. And I think, quarterback Mac Jones, Tyrod Taylor, Daniel Jones in your one quarterback leagues, I'm just not sure what value they're going to have. And Daniel Jones is on bye this week. It's another reason to let him go. Running back, I think I probably am going to hold on to Zach Moss. I know you probably may not get much from him this week, but what we wonder is if the Buffalo approach on offense, the running game, the short passing game, is going to be more of a staple of the offense. That says Zach Moss to me. So I'm sorry, we're cutting the Chuck D. I'm getting my wires crossed here because I'm thinking too much about rodeo. We're shutting down probably Chase Edmonds. Yeah. It's week 10, baby. We're shutting down Chase Edmonds unless you have an IR spot and he goes on IR. We're shutting down Tyson Williams. Maybe it's not the last we've heard of Tyson Williams. There's something there. But see, I think we can talk about this. That's more of a Thursday night topic. But there's so many running backs that have something there that we'll never learn their names. Mm-hmm. So at least Tyson Williams had a few moments there. And Khalil Herbert. I mean, you thought that Khalil Herbert did enough to force, maybe not truly a committee, but 30% of the work, more of a
Right.
Tony Pollard, A.J. Dillon light kind of role, but it didn't look like that. In fact, I think David Montgomery led running backs in snap share in week 9, even though he was just coming off of IR, and Khalil Herbert was behind him. So with the Bears going on a bye, probably Herbert's a drop. If it's a question of I can keep Khalil Herbert because he's a high upside, injury upside backup, or I could pick up one of these Tennessee backs and just see what happens. I'm probably going to just roll the dice on a Tennessee back and see what happens. Wide receiver, I think Tyler Boyd's a drop again. And this has been the story. This is another reason why Cease, especially doing the Waiver Wire show, it is one of the best pictures of how absurd the season is. With Ramondre Stevenson, someone already said in the chat room, but we're adding him, we're dropping him. You put Tyler Boyd in, you take Tyler Boyd out, you put Tyler Boyd in, and you shake it all about. You do the waiver wire pokey. You know what I mean? That's how this season has been. And in some ways, it's because of, again, that metaphor I've been using of being buffeted in the waves, clinging to your little raft in the ocean of football, trying to navigate to a win in fantasy football, because that is actually feeling like I should drop this player, and then next week I should pick him back up, and then week after that I should drop him. That's actually an accurate depiction of the experience of this season. I think that Jarvis Landry and Kadarius Toney are both guys I'm dropping Jarvis Landry for instance, Darnell Mooney or Allen Robinson and holding them through the bye week because I just don't think the upside's there for Landry, although he might help you in a pinch. Kadarius Toney's a little bit higher. I'll probably drop Kadarius Toney for the other sensational rookie, Elijah Moore. Otherwise, holding him, so potentially shut him down there if that's the only guy you can drop. And tight end, Cease, I think I don't have anybody to shut down at tight end. It's all positive this week at tight end.
It's all good. And I think life in general, Bloom, is shut them down and hold on, right?
Yeah.
Because you go through those things and you think I had a buddy of mine call me about a career change and getting out of the radio business. He's in another market. It's not a Denver thing, but so he was asking me my thoughts on certain companies. I was like, so he's shutting down that part of his life and he's going to a different career change. But that's the way it goes. You shut them down and then you hold on. So in week 10, Bloom, as we get the drum beat ready, who are some of those hold ons?
Yes, as in fantasy football, it is in life, right? I'm shutting down, eating after 10 p.m., but I'm holding on to my hot sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits in the morning, right?
I can't eat any of that. And 10 p.m., I don't eat after 6.
I know. I'm terrible. There are a couple of my eating habits that people find out about them. They're like, oh, that's going to catch up with you. Well, it hasn't yet, and, well, we'll see. Holding on to players, could it catch up with you if you hold on to Tua? Maybe, but the thing about Tua is he has produced against bad defenses. And coming up this week after Baltimore, you still have the Jets. You still have another matchup with the Jets. You still have Tennessee. So Tua can still have some value for us in one quarterback leagues. Obviously, you're holding on to him in 2 quarterback leagues with a chance that he's going to play. I already mentioned Zach Moss as a hold on just because of the potential changes. And that's it. I mean, again, even at tight end, there's not really holds because, maybe you held on to Dawson Knox or Rob Gronkowski. If you did, you're still going to keep holding on to them. So there's so many ins and outs. And I'll say this, Cease, as a parting shot. Every time I do the waiver wire up-down list, every time we get prepped for this show, there's always another player I think I should add. There's always another player. Yeah. It's just... And folks, please always feel free. I'm sensitive about a lot of things, but I'm not sensitive about serving my fantasy football audience. I'm using the Yahoo cutoff about 70%. If a player is rostered in 70% of leagues, I'm assuming they're not going to be out there for most people. Otherwise, and the chat room is always good at being at least our first focus group of making this as useful as possible, including always the cathartic feeling that comes with shut them down and hold on. But I think this is one of those seasons where it's funny because there's more fantasy football analysis, more great analysts, metrics, data visualizations than ever. But this fantasy football season is showing just how level the playing field is for all of us when we try to predict this thing week to week.
Yeah, the predict the thing, the wild and woolly buck and bull.
Yeah. Do you get a pin at the end of the season? I play fantasy football in 2021.
I played fantasy football and I won. Or maybe I didn't, but I spoiled it for everybody. 2 things, Bloom.
Yeah.
1, I want you to set up a P.O. box in New Orleans so people can send you hats
Yeah.
Because I think that'd be cool if you had like
I'll wear your hat
every day.
I mean,
right?
give me your logo. Like seriously, send me. Reach out. Send me your hat, and I will wear it.
We'll do. What are you talking about? Product placement? I just, there you go. Well, I could do a little show and tell. I always get questions about like what's behind me, what's over there.
Sure.
Like Mike Lorenzo gave me. That's an original Mike Lorenzo, 89 Batman, Michael Keaton painting.
Wow.
He gave me the original. I thought it was a print. And then I was talking to him one day. I was like, you gave me the original, dude. Like, you gave me the actual painting. So I got to get a better frame for that. Anyway, and I noticed my box going to CGC was in the background. First appearance of Grim Jack right there. I got 2 copies sending to CGC.
That was your old handle, Grim Jack.
It's still my handle. Like on every Xbox, Grim Jack 1977. Like, everything's Grim Jack. By the way, the Russo brothers wrote a screenplay for Grim Jack. I think Amazon bought it. It was the first thing they did after Endgame because they both love Grim Jack. That's a great story. Great story. I won't get into it now. That's for our other podcast. And with this other podcast, we're like, oh my God, we seriously should do another podcast.
Many of them, yeah.
Yes, many. Thousands and thousands of things.
The multiverse. We want to be in that, whatever that is.
Yes, but the main thing, like you said, dude, just everyone stay safe, stay happy out there. Yeah. Like, do your thing. Go forward with gratitude and grace. I think that's a good way to end things today. And to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank Dr. Jene Bramel for joining the show as always. Doing all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He is Sigmund. I am Cecil. We are the Audible, everyone. Check out footballguys.com if you want to support the show. Orange button says join now. Join us on this fantasy football journey. You're the hero. We're the guide. And let's have some fun together. It is footballguys.com. Everyone out there, thanks again. Stay tuned and stay frosty.